Good morning, February 22nd, 2021, and it is a heavy snowy day, Monday, in the DC area. So this is going to be part one. I'm probably going to have to do a couple different series on this because it has been downloaded all night, so not much sleep. So normally I'll come on just impromptu, but for some reason this morning they asked me to just journal down a couple things. So it's kind of like autonomic writing and letting my guides come through in the language that I can translate as simply to each of you. So the main topic is, we live here on the surface of this planet called Earth, right? And we're taught to live on the surface of this planet. And we're really pretty much in survival mode every day. We're tackling survival mode. So we're making sure there's a roof over our head, there's food in our stomach, clothing, bills, etc. So it's really not that much different than the generation before us and before them. The only difference is maybe there was more education acquired. Maybe your house is a little bit bigger. Maybe your income is a little larger. But still, the survival tactics are there. And so the ability to thrive is a little more difficult and challenging because we're in that gerbil wheel of survival, and becomes even more apparent when we have family and children, and we're trained to work for jobs that we're always working for someone else. Even if we're working for ourselves, we're working for someone else. So brings me to my next page here. So we're also taught to support everything outside of us. The God source is outside of us, somewhere out there in the abyss, with a team of angels and Yeshua, Jesus, and so on. They're all outside of us. And we're to pray up to them in hopes that our prayers are heard and answered and beamed back down here to Earth. And my thoughts were going to, and they were showing me this, there's an analogy of like, if you want to break in the back door, you create a scene in the front, a fire in the front. So everybody's attention is elsewhere. So it's always smoke and mirrors, right? When you want to hide something, you create a situation that everybody's focused on and no one's looking in the other direction. So that's a tactic everyone's used forever. So I started really thinking about Earth and what is happening in her. And so we all are very aware that there are underground tunnels. I mean, there have been forever. They're underneath cities, and they're built there for many reasons. One is to hide things, and one is to import-export, so the tunnels go out to the seas, and then routes of escape if under siege. So we all know about those. We also know about our governments who have many underground facilities. Many mountains are facilities. We just don't get to always see them. We hear about them. And we're so busy in our life in survival mode that when we get maybe a little glimpse of thriving, we do our best to spend a little time on that, but we really don't understand what's really happening underneath the Earth's surface. Okay? So what if the real truths and avenues to information were actually inside Mother Earth? We know we can track history, but that's all superficial history, meaning the surface stuff of maybe when an indigenous land and people lived, or the dinosaurs, or anything going back. I'm talking about down, 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 under. So what if these tunnels had another layer of tunnels under it? Another layer of tunnels under that. And what if there are beings, light and physical, just like the surface, some live for good, some don't. And most things that don't do it in the light of day, you know? So, without touching on a lot of different subjects, but what's in those layers below the tunnels, may not all be for the good. And that maybe there's sections in the globe that are down under working for the good. So we have just as much rumbling going on inside of Mother Earth as we do on her surface. It's just not in plain sight where you can take a photograph of it, right? Or see it with your own eyes and process it. So we can't physically get there because it's under heavy guard, right? And a lot of these people that are the guardians of all of these tunnels might not even know what they're guarding, because it's always a need to know basis, especially if you're dealing with military and secret societies and so on and so forth. So think of Mother Earth as like a honeycomb, literally. Like we're taught to look at it when we break a mountain or a rock open, we can see the layers, right? So we think of her as solid, but if you look at it in honeycombs, you've got a lot of areas that are open. And I know many times in different meditations, I'm taken to an area and instinctively I know that I'm inside of Mother Earth. It's like a mini paradise in there where I'm among very loving and friendly animals and nature and fairies and so on, that I wouldn't necessarily be here on the surface. So some people may think it's another planet. For me, mine, I've always instinctively known that I've gone into Mama, Pachamama's core. So what if we stop and think about what it is that we're trying to create here on Earth through our mantras, our meditations, our desires to manifest? And what if we switch it up a little bit? Instead of praying up and out, right? How about if we pray down and in? What a concept. So we always have to pray for Mother Earth because she's moving constantly, which creates some havoc at times, and much of it that we don't experience here on the surface. But when we do we know? Okay? So just think of that tsunami that most of us lived through watching on television. That was a shift in the Earth's plates that created that, from my understanding. So many of the Native Americans and many indigenous tribes, always Mother Earth is sacred and should continue to be sacred. So taking our time to plant trees in our yard and flowers and giving the surface its love, maybe we need to go a little bit deeper. So for me, I know I've got a tree I'll go to, and I will put my hands on the tree and I will vibrate with the tree, and I'll become one with it, and I give great love and thanks, and I send that love all the way down that tree's roots as far as it can go, and then some. And then I ask those roots to send that love out to all trees around the globe and give them great thanks, because without them we would not have oxygen. Okay? So start with a tree. And what if there are things going on underneath this surface that have been the guiding force to some battles that we don't need to get into detail about, but there are the indigenous down under, spiritually, in light bodies and in physical, that are doing nothing but praying and meditating and evolving inside the earth so it echoes back up throughout the earth, which is why there's so many sacred ceremonies around the world in certain times of the year. But then there are people that just do nothing but focus on planting trees and making sure that there's conservation in place so that greedy people are not destroying so many things to put up buildings, houses, and tear up Mother Earth, which would later prove poisonous to our waters and our grounds, etc. So there's so many different multifacets to these layers. We don't need to get into like what's happening on each of them, because then we get into that left brain analytical mind that we must know, and it has to make logic. And this is not a logical thing. Just like spirituality and your relationship there, it doesn't necessarily have vocabulary words to describe it. So it's a feeling of just an inner knowing on many different levels. So we don't need to put it in a box. We don't need to put it in a language. We need to see how it feels. So I think of the core of Mother Earth as a disco ball, crystal diamond disco ball. And it just is just shattering light and love in every different ray of direction through her layers to the surface and up, because all the planets talk to each other, right? And that gives nurturing, loving support to all of us, but we have to give it back, folks. We have to give it back. And maybe you live in an apartment building and you can't do a lot of outside stuff, and I understand that. That's no problem. Get a plant, love it, nurture it, thank it for where it came, thank its family for where it came, thank the nurturing hands that planted those seeds that got the plant in your house to begin with. So a little appreciation for the journey of that plant. So if we're not able to get out to a tree, maybe near our building or our house there's a shrub, maybe we could just stand there and just take our little fingertips, touch that shrub, and just send golden, loving light to that shrub, that plant, that tree, the grass, whatever it is, flowers. Send it all the way down through the roots and then some. And then take it a step further and visualize this beautiful golden ray coming out from each foot. And every step that you take sends this laser ray of love and gratefulness and appreciation in this golden ray. and it's going into the core of Mother Earth, and it is feeding her with appreciation and gratitude and creating peace so that she can function without so many outbreaks, because there are layers of those in those tunnels that are here that we can't even describe how dark. Just can't. We don't need to focus on that because love will override it. But it needs each and every one of us to empower ourselves, to power up our hearts, power up our antenna to God, right? We are attached to the core of Mother Earth. We are attached to the divine consciousness. And Mother Earth is a living, breathing consciousness. She feels everything. And she has been here unconditionally for us. And it's time each person acknowledge that in some way, shape, or form. So maybe instead of picking a flower, we send that flower abundant joy and gratefulness that we get to look at it because it's still alive in the soil. And we just breathe in that love and light, and then we send it out the bottom of our feet. And literally, all that love and light helps to dissolve any of that intentional darkness that is in different layers of her, of our beautiful Mother Earth. So maybe just start with a simple thing like that. And if you're able to get a plant and really nurture it and love it and give thanks to all plants and just anything that you can do that honors Mother Nature, and give great thanks that it sustains your house. It has a surface for your car to go on. It has a surface for you to walk on. It has a surface for you to plant and receive food. It has a surface that gives you water, all the necessities and the nutrients that we need that have been slowly but surely being destroyed, not just by the surface people, but by those in some of those tunnels. All right? So give that some thought today and see what you could do to let Mother Earth know how much you appreciate her. Without her, we would not have existence here. That's plain and simple. And love everything on her, including the darkness. Shed light and love into that darkness. At the same time, honoring your light and letting your light get brighter by being aware of it and having conscious intent of being a love light carrier. Promise you, you'll get nutrients everywhere, from every being everywhere. All right? So I'm sure there's going to be more on this, and I'll see what they bring through. But until then, do your part. Much light and love to each and every one of you. Please like, subscribe, share, and leave me a nice message. Bye.